Hello, how are you all? I hope you're alright. This is probably strange because I have been filming during the whole day, so the sun lightning wasn't very compelling at the moment, so I'm using only the kind of um, light in front of me, so I would probably look like a ghost. Keep with me. Hi, I am Clara, and today I want to do a little bit of a recommendations slash review video. And this is going to be tricky because I'm going to recommend you a book that you don't find in English bookstores. But I need to talk to you about Raquel Arbeteta. And you are probably telling or asking yourself, who is that person? Um, Raquel Arbeteta is a very kind of new but kind of famous author in Spain. She normally writes about romance, but she basically jumps in between all the age categories. So, because today, as in the day I'm filming, it's Valentine's Day, I thought I could do a recommendation video about her books, about the books I have read. I have one more that I haven't read, and I want to read her newest releases, which I don't own or I have not been given or borrowed from friends. So I'm going to be talking mainly about the four books out of the 6, 7 books that she has, um, that I actually read. So starting from the beginning, Raquel Arbeteta is a Galician author, but she's based now in Madrid for all I know, and she studied biology. And as far as I know, and this is important, she works also as a teacher of biology in high schools plural. So her kind of career, like academic career, is important because it will be relevant to some of her books. So I'm going to talk to you mainly about the books that I read in the order, well, not in the order I read them. I'm going to start with the historical romance sort of novels that she has. She has 2 books, and it's going to be a trilogy, but there are 2 books published that are historical romance. They are set in Regency era, so think about Jane Austen ish, or the Bridgerton as time period kind of base. And the first of which was Amor y Conveniencia, it's the story of Hope, who is being like, she's a noble lady, but due to familiar circumstances, her household is not in a very kind of influential position of any kind, and she's been in society like as a young lady for a while. So this means that she's been like trying to get married or trying to caught the eye of a possible suitor for a while, but she's more of a, well, like um, not very kind of popular among her peers. So when she is at a ball, she meets 2 young ladies more or less her age, and they decide to join forces and to try to find the best suitors for each of them. So in this first book, they decide to start with Hope as a beginning, and she ends up meeting Caden, who is a very kind of opposite person to Hope. He is not from a kind of noble. This is why I used to do this, so I didn't have memory loss. But he doesn't belong to that part of society. He is more of a kind of businessman. he has a factory, he's part of the industry of sorts. So all the kind of very kind of that the social circle where Hope belongs to approves Caden because he has money, he's wealthy, but they don't support the idea of him coming up into the noble area of society. But the thing I like most about this story is that it tackles very human and very kind of emotional strings. So there's disability representation here, and that's a lot, or that plays a huge part of the character's background and kind of history, and how this character in particular, Hope, sees herself and she's viewed by the rest of her circle, which is not exactly how Kaiden sees her. So when they meet in a very uncommon or unconventional situation, they decide to make a pact, because Kaiden wants to get into the nobility sort of area in which Hope is very kind of, she's been raised there, but he needs help, so they team up in order to get that access. They decide to actually have an arranged marriage. So this is more of an agreement, but as the book goes on and all these kind of backstories progress and you see them unfold, it may or may not result in a happy ending. The thing is, or at least the thing I like most about this story, is that even though it's historical romance and that you have precedents before as Austen novels or the Bridgertons more recently, this book per se describes very well the high society and the upcoming wealthier houses that are not part of the nobility. So this clash of two opposites within the London kind of high society ranks of sorts. So you have a love story blooming from there, but as that happens, these two characters, and I'm talking about Caden and Hope, have their own backstories and their own traumas and their own insecurities alone and as a couple, and those issues are very highly intertwined, and they have to learn and to know each other and to grow kind of more communicative than they normally do, either because they were raised to be more of a quiet kind of girl, or because they don't have like that support from the outside, so they normally work on their own. So this idea of having complex characters in a very kind of protocolary environment, while also coming from different areas of society but having this kind of goal in common, it's very very interesting. This story is very emotional, and I think it's not, it follows some of the kind of things that you would expect. So we are in a historical romance, so you will have balls and meetings of sorts, and you will have this kind of private balls or more collective balls, and you have that. So you have this sense of romance in like public spaces and dances and you know, courtship and all of that, but you will have also very kind of modern, very contemporary approach to certain things, and there's inclusion of elements regarding disability and and disability adaptation to you know objects and things like that, and that's really nice. And I like how both characters that come from very different backgrounds and very different kind of ideas of life come to find themselves pulled towards each other because they have a common goal, but because they respect and find fondness in each other and learn how to, and this will be very common also in the following book I'm going to mention, but they have to learn how to be vulnerable in front of each other, which is tricky in a time period where kind of the facade, the idea of having a respectable image is more important. You're probably going to see differences between one take and the other because I'm not quite sure about how which kind of capability of the light, natural light and artificial light is best, and I still, in fact, we are going to play a little bit with this because I still don't like it, and I thought yellow kind of light was best, but I'm not very sure. Okay, so where I was before, we were discussing about amor y conveniencia, and I was talking about how the characters work, how the romance work, and how the kind of environment works. But I also want to chat about how the friendship works, in the sense of, as I said before, this is a Bridgerton like, Jane Austen like type of romance because we are in the Regency era. So if we are in the Regency era and we are among the nobles, among the kind of the members of the town, to say, if we look at the ladies, at the kind of ladies who are in the marriage market, they were raised to be ladies of houses, of big important houses, so their education, it's mostly for being picked up by someone else to marry, and if they are raised to be future wives, they will see, or if you were in their shoes, you would see the other ladies of your age, or more or less your age, as competition, someone to have envy of, or to try to get ahead of. But in this story, the friendship established between three young ladies, who are, one of them is one of them who is new because she comes from France, and but the other two are kind of there. Hope and Alyssa are there for, they have been there for few seasons, so this means that they are no longer that young or that interesting. So the idea of these three young ladies working together to get good prospects and good husbands, and to make sure one of them is happy and is safe, is something of a novelty in within the romance books. Because let's be clear, not only in historical romance, but when we read romance per se, or when we watch a romance film, once the love interest is there and the relationship is starting or is established, the friendship or the friends group, unless it's part, they are all together in the same group, the friendships, and especially the female friends, are kind of put aside. They are not important anymore, and I love how Raquel has managed to have a romance plot, but also equally important friendship plot that may not be always in the center, but it's always there's always revolving around. There's always something there revolving around the three of them. Maybe it's helping Hope with how to who to find as a possible suitor, or once things are established, to overcome her own insecurities as a lady of the house, or as a wife per se, or as someone whose self-esteem is not in the right place, sort of, to say. So it's very important to, or to me it was very important to see a romance plot where, despite the miscommunication and the historical, you know, circumstances that happen, the romance blossoms and works, and they make mistakes, but they learn to speak with each other and listen to each other. But equally, a group of friends who are there supporting, in this case, Hope, but also there to navigate with her as friends in a society that, at least what we learn from books and films, it's very isolating in terms of friendship, but also once you are married, they are not friendship are not key anymore. In the sequel of this book, which is called Lealdad y Escándalo, is the turn of the eldest of the three friends, who is Alyssa Chadbourne. Alyssa Chadbourne is the, out of the three friends, the one with the most, kind of, the highest social status, but that doesn't mean she has the comfortable position of not being married. So, due to circumstances I'm not going to reveal, she ends up being kind of forced to team up and to, take the only way out in this society, with the men, the man, sorry, not several men, with the man she despised the most, who is also relevant in the first book as well. So this is an enemies to lovers kind of story. But it's interesting because it also has this kind of Beauty and the Beast environment wise approach as well. Because this is the first time we are going far from London and up to Scotland. So she and Ezra, who is the main character here, will have to team up and work together to get out of a situation that neither of them wanted, but is the only way out in a very kind of restrict society. And I think in this case, if I saw myself represented in the first one due to the disability representation and self-esteem issues with Hope and everything, in this case Alyssa has her own secrets, her own past, that also kind of forces her to be more guarded, more kind of colder sort of person, with when she has a very soft kind of interior and heart. And it's very interesting how she, who has a very sharp and very intelligent kind of temperament, and she is very quick and witty. She is matched with Ezra, who is equally very witty, and it's more of a kind of banter situation, although he's at the same time very clumsy and very prideful. So it's a very interesting mix, very kind of dangerous as well, because they have very hard temperament, not hard but explosive temperaments, and it's very very interesting. But it's also more complex or more kind of darker themes than in the previous one, which also had her own. The plot had its own difficult topics, but I think this one is darker, um, and I love it equally. I even love it more. I remember I gave it 5 stars, and I cried a lot in the first one, but this one I cried more here. Um, Not that I follow my writing of books based on how much I cry, but this is a matter that I wanted to highlight. Out of the two, I think from these kind of historical romances, I would say that Raquel does a very interesting exercise with the characters in a very strict environment of Regency society, to show how they want and they are vulnerable people, so how they became better when they let themselves be vulnerable, in a sense. And I like how the plot and the characters are very well integrated, but the style fits very well the bowls and the teacup style of Regency era, but very flowery and very in especially in the second one, for example, the house where they go to live, to the castle they go to live, and this Beauty and the Beast approach to the surroundings, it kind of reflects very well how the main character feels sometimes when kind of confronted with things they don't he doesn't like, which is equally what she feels. So the exterior, the surroundings, meets the main character colder, both of them colder approach, or the disinterested approach to love, when it's actually just when they're actually very kind of yearning for connection in a way. I don't know, I really like it. And from here I have to go to contemporary romance. So we are going to talk about Una mentira compartida. Una mentira compartida is the story of two characters, Rubén, who is a Spanish PhD student, and Maeve, who is an Irish creative writing master student. They are they're looking for flats in Dublin, because they are moving into Dublin but without any kind of place to stay. And when they find a very nice kind of homey flat, they discover that the landlord only hires or rents couples as tenants. I think it's as people to be living there. So they decide to very clumsily pretend that they are actually a couple, which they are not. They just met 3 minutes prior to this interview, and it's very funny because both of them are very very opposite. So whereas Ruben, it's very kind of structural and very kind of follow his own patterns and comfortable with monotony and having clear visions of what he will do, having clear routines and everything. Maeve is pure chaos. Actually, she's very talkative and very witty and very kind of rooted to fantasies instead of reality. But she loves writing and books, and she basically travels with a luggage full of books. But she also has like her own secrets and her own past, and a very huge imposter syndrome regarding her writing. And what I love about this is not only the comical bits, which is this is a story that it's very funny, is very kind of witty and homey in a sense. But I love how the main characters, who are so different, they complement each other very well. They make mistakes and learn from them, but also they listen to each other very much. So you could see, for example, that there are passages in which the characters talk about their interests, either the PhD topic or the creative writing topic, or it doesn't have to be work related. It could be another different things, like things that they are passionate about, and the other one learns how to listen and enjoy seeing each other talking about that. And it's very funny because literally I think there are parts in the book where the both of them say that the favorite version of the other is when they are talking about their passions, either the PhD, which is a huge topic, or the creative writing course. Like they lit up and they love that for the other. So okay, now we are going to talk about the PhD. I have been avoiding reading about characters doing the PhD or studying in an academic setting for a while, because I have done mine, and although it had great kind of moments, I also felt very bad about it, and I didn't want to steer that kind of feelings. However, I loved reading about the PhD experience for the male character here, because it's very similar in although it's a different topic because it's biology. It's sometimes was very I was very seen in a sense of feeling kind of behind, or feeling that the things didn't work, or feeling that he wasn't able to grasp what he was looking for. But I love the PhD bits and the experimental bits in the lab with Ruben, because the author is a biologist herself. So she introduced the kind of PhD experiments in biology, because that's something her character does, but she knew about it, like she understood the topic. But the way she introduced it to it is not, it's not info dumping. He Ruben is very passionate about the PhD, and he is doing a year abroad, so he only has a year to live in Dublin. But he kind of connects so well with Maeve that he wants to extend that, explain his passion to her, and he's very shy. So for Maeve, she knows that if he opens up about the PhD, about the experiment, that's because she is very important to him in a sense. So the way it is explained, knowing that Maeve is not a biologist at all, is very simple yet very effective. And again, what I love the most about this is that you could notice, and not only in the way it was written, but in the way it was portrayed and transpired through the pages, that the author loves the topic and the characters loves it too. So although the explanation might be simple, is very easy to connect and to understand with a very complex kind of approach to science and to academic style of writing and education. Likewise, when Maeve discusses about writing, she is discovered to be someone with a very low self-esteem, with a lot of imposter syndrome issues. She is someone from a coastal town instead of a city, so when she moves to Dublin, she is alone and she doesn't have any security net of any kind. She has to work besides actually studying, and when she enters the master, she discovers that the that her peers are kind of, if not more advanced on their writing skills, they have more of a, in my reading of the situation, more of an accommodate life than she has. And it's very interesting to see how she how the author portrays being stuck or wanting to write but not finding the proper tone or the proper like plot to follow, or how she gets frustrated because she knows what she wants to write about, but she doesn't have the tools to do so. So likewise, when Maeve talk about writing and writing skills and reading and who she prefers as a writer and so on, you could see both of the characters supporting each other and learning through each other experiences and loving talking about each other's kind of areas of expertise. And this is very funny but very vulnerable story about not finding your place or being scared of not being in your place or not being understood and cared for, because I think that's the kind of wound both of the characters have. And I don't know, it was, I don't have that book with me. It was a borrowed book from a friend, but I also gave it 5 stars. I cried a lot. I loved the book in itself. I think the characters were very human. As I said before, the topic of interest were very different but very well included. It wasn't forced at all. It was also the way, or the everything was very organic. The character dynamics, the relationship development, and the kind of giving them a space to explore the passions and their work while sharing it with the other. And to me, this book is important because it reflects some of my own fears, but also the two parts of me that I kind of have and had, and that I cultivated or not. And it's very interesting because I saw myself in both of the characters, and I know very well the feeling of not being good enough to be a writer, or feeling like you know what you want to write but you don't know how, or if you try to do something like more like others, you feel like you're faking it, so it's not working, it's forced. I don't know, I love how seen I felt through this story, and how it was from two very opposite kind of ends of my own personality and life trajectory in a sense. This leads me to the last book I'm going to be talking about you today, which unfortunately is out of print, and is Te traeré a casa. Funny enough, this was the first book of Raquel Arbeteta that I actually read. It's a short kind of novel of it's a sci-fi novel that deals with the Eurydice and Orpheus myth of sorts, but in a futuristic setting, where the world is kind of crumbling, but it's controlled by gangs, and two female characters find each other coming from very different perspective, and one of them is kind of kidnapped, and the other one, who knows more or less where she is, has to navigate through the city, through the kind of most expensive, important places of the city to get her back. And I love how the myth and the futuristic setting merged there, while also having a very emotional, almost lyrical way of describing it and writing. The writing craft shown in all the stories of Raquel are tremendous. The writing craft is tremendous in any of the stories I just mentioned, but in here, due to the shortness of the story and also due to the specific kind of technical, or yes, futuristic technical approach to it, the kind of, you can see the quirks of the myth. You can see how she molded the myth to this female romance, sort of to say, but also you can see how it integrates so well with dystopian city that it's controlled by a few that are members of the same family, and how our own Orpheus-like character has to navigate through that part of the city to get to her lover, in a sense. And although you know how the story is going to end, you don't know how it's going to develop. And I love the kind of different different ways of changing stuff, to make it as unique as it can be, but also to allow you to identify which part of the myth are we discussing or are we dealing with. And I love it, and it's a pity that that's not like possible to buy it anymore, because I really like it. I have it in my Kindle, and I it's one of the best pieces of myth retellings that I've read. And I think this is all I wanted to say for today, really. I know that it's going to be a really long kind of video, but I wanted to do something different for Valentine's Day. I wanted to talk to you about an author that you may not know so far, and I wanted to bring something new that it was more of a chatty video and also counted as a review of sorts. So I hope I see you next week. Bye!